Greetings from the Nubian village in Aswan, Upper Egypt. I had an eye-opening experience a few weeks ago when I was in Ethiopia. I'm currently in Egypt, traveling the African continent with my family, and I have to share this experience with you. So I was in my room, in my home in Addis Ababa, getting ready to meet my friends, when my cousin came to me and told me, listen, Weyni, your son looks like a mess. He was playing outside with the kids the entire day. So give me some new fresh clothes and a towel. I want to shower him and get him ready for bed. Okay, I went to the other room to take his stuff when I see my other cousin there braiding my daughter's hair. I didn't even tell her to do it, but it really made me realize that it was the best decision of my life to come back to the motherland, because they say in Africa it takes a whole village to raise a child, and I felt that so much in that moment. I felt so lucky because, you know, when you are a single mom and living in Europe, you have to do all on your own. And don't get me wrong, like, haters gonna hate, call me a lazy mom. Even if I can do all this by myself, it doesn't mean I have to. So my biggest regret about moving back to Africa was that I waited for so long. I wish I would have done it more earlier. However, we give thanks and praise. I'm here now. So I want to give you a short update on our journey. We've spent 8 weeks on the continent now. We've spent 6 weeks in Ethiopia, and it's been an emotional roller coaster. I can't wait to share everything with you. For today's episode, I didn't prepare anything, no fancy editing, just real talk, sharing my thoughts, my feelings, and I hope you feel inspired to travel the beautiful continent of Mama Africa. Welcome, Karibu and Salam Salam to Plan B, back to Africa. My name is Weyni. If you're new to this channel, thanks for joining. So we are currently in Aswan, Egypt, and I'm overwhelmed. We are living in a Nubian village, and we've spent the first week in Cairo, which was amazing. The people are so nice. The food is amazing. The ancient history of ancient Egypt, of Kemet, is just, what can I say? I'm overwhelmed. Like, every day, soaking in all the information, the knowledge, the wisdom. I'm at loss of words. Really, sometimes I enter a temple and I'm just speechless. In today's episode, I want to share the reason why I left Europe. And it's not just a push factor. I also want to talk about the pull factor, what draws me to the African continent. So let's dive straight into it. So the number one reason why I'm leaving Europe, and I've lived in Holland and in Germany. So the number one reason is because I want my children to grow up in a society where they are not reduced to their skin color, where they're not discriminated based on their skin color. And so I've went through this pain and this traumatic experience myself. I was born and raised in Germany, and unfortunately, more than 30 years later, I don't see much progress, to be honest, fam. It's a fact that right-wing populism is on the rise all over the Western world, whether it is in the US, whether it is in France, whether it is in Germany, whether it is in Holland. Like, imagine in Germany, a party that is known to have a right-wing ideology is now, in many parts of Germany, the second most powerful party, and it's very likely that they will take over German politics. So if you haven't seen my episode about their secret plan and secret meeting where rich investors met with right-wing extremists and Nazi supporters, check it out. They were discussing a plan on how to deport immigrants, even those holding German citizenship, because that's not going to be an easy task. However, imagine they were discussing it. In case you're surprised about the noise, I'm right here next to the beautiful River Nile. And so there was just a boat passing us. Ah, fam, it's indescribable here. It's so beautiful. Anyways, Yeah, one of my main reasons is I really want my children to grow up in Africa, where the majority of the population is black, because I've already seen the positive impact it had on my daughter. It's not the first time that we are living on the African continent. We moved to Ethiopia in 2019 and stayed in Addis Ababa for 2 years until the war broke out, which forced us to flee the country overnight, because we are from the ethnic group of the Tigrayans, and the government, together with its allies from neighboring Eritrea and from the neighboring Amhara region, waged a genocidal war against the region, and I felt it in the capital as well. So we were harassed by police, by neighbors, and so I decided it's time to go. So I'm not saying that everything is perfect in Africa, not at all. We are far away from it. We have so much to overcome in terms of tribalism, ethnic conflict, colorism, and also anti-blackness is also a big problem in Africa, you know. And that is really what blows my mind, is the effectiveness of white supremacy in the absence of white people. But regardless, I felt the positive impact of living in a black society on my daughter back then already, when she was a toddler. So for instance, when she was painting a picture, she will draw the little girls in the same skin color as her, and she's very confident in her dark skin. Whereas I, when I was a little child, I would use the color, light color, to draw my dolls, and also I would choose a white doll over a black doll. So this was one of the positive impacts that living in Ethiopia had on my daughter. Another pull factor that draws me back to the African continent is, as I mentioned in the beginning, the support that you get from your community in raising a child. It really takes a whole village to raise a child. And I feel that already here during my travels, but this is also because I always make sure that we stay among the local community, where we can really make connections, get to know the people on the ground, the real locals, you know. Like, I was really never the type of staying in a resort where you are just surrounded by tourists, because I don't believe that should be, that is not the essence of really traveling and learning about new cultures. And so, for instance, we are here in the Nubian village, and it's Ramadan. It's so beautiful because you see so many people outside in the evening, so many children, and I just love to see my children connecting with other children, playing soccer in the streets. Just it's really mind-blowing that they can really overcome these language barriers. And so this is another pull factor. Another pull factor is I really want my children to learn more about their roots and their history and the beauty and diversity of the African continent. And this can also be a push factor, because I really don't like how Africa is portrayed in the West, whether it is in the media, whether it is in the school curriculum. And the school curriculum has not really changed since I went to school in Germany. I don't know how it is in other countries, but in Germany, African history, even though African civilizations have been essential for world history, and for instance ancient Egypt, which was totally whitewashed and is still whitewashed. Can you imagine? And this goes, by the way, also for Ethiopian history. I mean, the fact that Egyptology and African studies, which I studied in my bachelor's, right, in many parts of the world, the university where I studied is an exception, but can you imagine that these two subjects belong to the Department of Oriental Studies and not of African Studies? And this makes no sense, because last time I checked, Egypt and Ethiopia are on the African continent. And so you can see clearly that there is an agenda behind, which is to claim ownership on the contributions, the great contributions of African civilizations. And I just oppose that. I oppose that, and that's the reason why I also moved to the African continent, because I want my children to learn the real history. And you know, it's really ridiculous. If you look at the school curriculum in Germany, I had history as my main subject, but not for once we were speaking about the transatlantic slave trade. And I talked to some Kenyans. It blew my mind what they learned in school. Like, they learned about the Battle of Adwa in Ethiopia. They learned about the Aksumite Empire. They learned so much about African history. I really can't wait to move to Kenya and send my children to school there. Anyway, let's get back to the pull factors. Another reason why I'm moving to the African continent is because of my work. So I have an NGO, and I'm trying to really help to develop and uplift the African continent, and it's way more easier when you live on the ground. I remember I was struggling when I was living in Europe. I had to navigate and manage the little time that I have to go to the African continent for my projects, have to make sure that I have somebody to take care of my children. And so when I'm living on the African continent, it's way more easier. I just came back from Ethiopia, as I told you, where I have my family, so I was able to really take care of my projects. We were helping internally displaced people, which were refugees, which fled ethnic cleansing in Western Tigray and didn't receive any humanitarian aid for a year. And so together with my NGO and help with my friends, we were able to deliver almost 10,000 kilo of corn to support these families. And so I want to do this more regularly. And when I'm living and settling in Kenya, where I will have my relatives, I will be able to just, take a short trip to Ethiopia for a week to continue my projects there. And this is very important for me as well. And when it comes to developing and uplifting the African continent, I said it many times before, I'm 100% convinced that the African continent will only be developed, truly developed, through its children and through its children alone. Because I was working for NGOs, Western European based NGOs, and the only people who this is benefiting is in fact Western people, European people. I once read that, can you imagine, 99% of the foreign aid from the US goes back to the US, because when they deliver aid, they buy the humanitarian aid, whether it is like food or whether it is expertise, whether it is like construction machines in the US. So there's just really a few projects who really create a positive impact. How else will you explain the fact that despite all the billions of dollars that have been sent in terms of foreign aid, have not really developed the African continent? So these are my personal main reasons why I'm leaving Europe for Africa, and I can't wait to share more with you. So let me know what you think in the comments, if you also plan to move back to the African continent, or maybe you have done so already. I'm looking forward to read about your experiences, and I look forward to see you next week. Bye.